In 2006, Atlas Corps was founded to address critical social issues by developing leaders, strengthening organizations, and promoting innovations through an overseas fellowship and virtual learning programs of skilled professionals from around the world. Our community began with an inaugural class of 6 fellows who hailed from Colombia and India. In 15 years, Atlas Corps has empowered 1,000 leaders from 104 countries, partnered with 300 host organizations, US embassies, and our network of supporters to multiply impact domestically and worldwide. Atlas Corps leaders represent the richness of diversity, inclusion, and cultural awareness. Now, more than ever, we need to keep building bridges between social change leaders from around the world. During our 15th anniversary year, Atlas Corps continues to engage social change leaders as fellows and virtual scholars. Our fellows serve in the United States and virtually from their home regions. Virtual scholars enhance their professional skills, build global networks, and prepare for leadership in home communities during our Virtual Leadership Institute, a new online leadership development program launched by Atlas Corps in 2020. This year, we invite you to celebrate with us our 15th anniversary. Thank you for supporting our community of global changemakers. Thank you for supporting Atlas Corps.
Hello there. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Kayode Yusuf. I'm an Atlas Corps Fellow, Class 39 from Nigeria, serving at Evidence Action in Washington, D.C. And today, I am going to be joined by my fellow Class 39 colleagues to have a chat about our fellowship here. So one thing that stands us out is that we are the inaugural blended fellows for Atlas Corps. What this means was that we started our fellowship in the heat of COVID. And of course, because of COVID and the travel restrictions, we were not able to resume to the US to start our fellowship. So we had to start our fellowship in our home countries. Today, I am joined by 2 of my classmates who will tell us we all will tell about our experience through the blended fellowship, what our challenges were, what we think our successes are, and a little bit of tips that we can give to the upcoming fellows. This morning, I have Heba and Emmanuel, and I'm going to give them the floor to introduce themselves, starting with Heba. Heba, please, can you tell us about your 5 facts?
Hi, thank you, Kayode, for the introductions. My name is Heba. I'm a Class 39 Fellow from Egypt. I'm currently serving at, or I've actually done serving at Short-Term Citizen Institute. I'm done. I need to learn to say that more. I'm done with my fellowships. We're going to talk about this later. And my one fun fact is I have a lot of completely useless and random facts in my head. And they pop up at different times. So yeah, thank you, Kayode.
Yeah, I understand that transition, trying to transit from being a fellow to an alumni. Let me congratulate you. So Heba is transiting this week from being a fellow to an alumni. So that makes her the senior out of all 3 of us here. So senior Heba. And then I'll move on to my fellow countryman. So fun fact about the next guy, we come from the same city in the same country. And we're both serving in the same city in the US. Emmanuel.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kayode, and thanks for the introduction. I can actually testify to the fact that Heba does have a lot of fun, random facts in her head, and it does come up a lot. But yeah, my name is Emmanuel. I'm also an Atlas Corps Class 39 Fellow, serving at Charter Citizen Institute as well. So Heba and I pretty much served in the same organization, even though now she's done. For my interests, I'm very interested in like building organizations, right? So I'm doing a lot of work with, small and medium scale businesses in Nigeria, trying to, doing a lot of economic development work. And fun fact about me is that I'm left-handed, and I didn't even realize how that was a fun fact until when I joined the fellowship. But yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot. It's great to be here today.
Awesome, Emmanuel. Awesome. And so I think I've spoken about myself, but I didn't give my fun fact. So my fun fact is that I love adventurous travels. Unfortunately, in the US, I'm yet to exploit that. So I can say that what I have exploited is getting lost and found in DC. So I've done several walks across DC, and I think I'm comfortable in DC. I need to conquer most cities in DC. Awesome. So a bit about the blended fellowship. So this new program structure allows fellows to actually start their fellowship in their home countries prior to arrival in the US, and allows them to continue for a total of 14 months. So initially, the initial start time for the Atlas Core Fellowship is 12 months, which would be served in the US. But now we see fellows start some of the months in their home countries, and then they move on to the US and spend a total of 14 months. Class 39 is the inaugural class that started this, and after class 39 we've had class 40, we've had class 41, 42, and I think that class 43 is going to be resuming next month. That's exciting. We're looking forward to welcoming them. And one of the things that I think, like I had expected that the fellowship would maybe put on hold. I really had my doubts when we're going to start the fellowship, but I was amazed with the speed and way the blended fellowship was designed. And I think I'm going to start with that. Did you have any fears when you got selected for this fellowship and then COVID happened? Abba, I'll start with you.
I think when COVID happened, I was more afraid about my life rather than the fellowship. I was like, whatever happens, at least I'm still alive. So I was like in that mindset. And I was kind of open to anything. I just finished grad school right before COVID started. So like February 2022, 2022 hasn't come yet. What's wrong with you? But yeah, so in 2020, February 2020, I just finished grad school. So it was everything was a little bit up in the air, and then I got the fellowship. So I was like really interested in actually doing it. But I was also kind of like, okay, whatever happens. The world is literally shut down. And I think, yeah, so I wasn't completely afraid, but I was kind of open to whatever is going to happen in a way.
And you, Emmanuel?
For me, I think that obviously it was a bit weird to deal with. I think that when we first of all found out that it's going to be difficult, I mean, obviously, like the pandemic, it was global news. We all knew that there were going to be travel restrictions everywhere. And so when first of all found out even for Atlas Core at the time, because this had never happened to them before, it seemed like, we were all faced with a new challenge. We didn't know what to do. And it was saying, maybe, this might just get canceled. This might just get postponed. But once we started to figure out a way to, do it in a blended way and all of that, I think that everything just started to look up. And honestly, I must give a bit of credit to the Atlas Core team as well for, just being flexible enough to think of a solution to that problem in, a very short time and still make sure that fellows can at least, get the experience of being a fellow, even if it was virtual. But I mean, now all of that is in the past because we've also had the privilege of doing it physically as well. So yeah, this was my experience.
Yeah, and I think it's also a very good experience for the Atlas Core team because aside from bringing us to the US, we've had several other classes come to the US. And big ups to you, the Atlas Core team. I must also mention that we would be taking questions. The last 15 minutes of this session will be dedicated to your questions, and your questions would not be for us to represent the Atlas Core team. We can't do that, but it would be for us to talk about our experience. So if you've got questions, please shoot them in the chat, and I see several chats coming up. One actually comes to you, Abba, from Kenneth Onye, who says, congratulations. I guess it's congratulating you for being done with grad school and also finishing your fellowship. So congratulations also from us here. Now, let's talk about our roles in our host organization. So another fun fact, actually, so Abba and Emmanuel serve in the same organization, Charter Cities Institute. And so we'll start with you, Heba. What is your role in your organization?
I should have said it in my 5 facts, but my background is in urban planning and urban development. I did undergrad in architecture as a major and minored in urban planning. And then I did a lot of like community development projects in the Middle East. And then I did grad school in Germany. I did grad school in urban development. So my role here is an urban researcher. So basically anything that has to do with urban research, urban planning and development. That was my role. Emmanuel can like say more about the organization, where we started off as very small. We tripled like the size of the organization in, I think, in like 1 year, and the past 6 months like we doubled, something like this. So it was like a really cool journey to start with a very, very small organization and see it grow. Basically I do research. You can tell from my very big eyeglasses.
Yeah, and I can also tell that you do go read in the park on Sundays. That's a lot of research.
Every like that's the cool thing about DC, you guys. It's like it has a lot of parks. They're all very accessible, even by walking wherever you live. Not all everywhere, but like almost wherever you live, you can go like walk a 10-minute walk or 15-minute walk and find a park. And if you're a nerd like me, you would love it on Sundays to go sit there for 6 hours and read without your phone. So that's it's a cool thing.
Do you have a favorite park?
So I like the park like next to the Channel Square apartment. So I like that because it has a view of the water, so you can read while like glancing at the water. And I have like a favorite tree there, but I'm not gonna go over where my favorite tree is because that's boring. But I like the park in our place, and I also like the park that overlooks the Jefferson Memorial because it also has water in it. So any park that near a water is my favorite park. I'm just saying.
So I think we've got favorite parks together, because I love that park close to the apartment. And usually when I'm done with my evening walks, I usually will just walk through that place, take 5 minutes to just sit and look at the water. But I love the park at Jefferson Memorial. It's beautiful, totally beautiful. Over to you, Emmanuel. So tell us about your role at your organization.
Unmute yourself, Emmanuel.
I'm never going to mute myself again. Like Heba said, we work in the same organization. And my role, I basically joined as an operations manager fellow. So essentially, one of the things that made it such a great fit at the time, like Heba said, when we joined, it was just 4 people, and there were just like 4 researchers, and then 1 researcher left. So it was like 3 of us, and then Heba and I joined, and it was 5, and like it was just a research team, right? So because I had I've done a lot of work in like human resources management, project management. So essentially, one of the things that I had to help out with in the host organization and sort of like learn through is that process of building an organization and like really, really like growing from a small organization to a bigger organization, right? So I've had to sort of like help out with a lot of the hiring. So like Heba said, we started out with like we're 3, and then we're 5, and now we're like over 15, right? So a lot of growth has happened, structuring the organization properly, moving from just having a research team to now having a comms team, a development team, to having a partnerships team, and all of this like sort of building out that entire organizational structure and make it a bit more sustainable. Those are the things that I've had to like do over the past 1 year and a few months ish. And that's essentially what my role has been at CCI.
Yeah, it's funny because Emmanuel, the fellow, he literally hired everyone that works here.
So that was going to be my next question. Like,
he hired everyone.
So what was that like for you, Emmanuel? Like that's awesome.
For me, it was the wildest thing I've ever had to do in my life, and I will say this because it's rare, because we started, virtually. So it was me at my desk in Nigeria, trying to figure out how things work in the US, where I'd never been, and trying to figure out what the hiring best practices were, trying to figure out how to find candidates, trying to figure out what interviews were like in the US, because I think they're significantly different from the way they are in other parts of the world, right? So I remember in the beginning, no jokes, I would literally go on LinkedIn, right? And then like find human resources practitioners that work in the US, right? And I would like send people like LinkedIn messages, just like blast them LinkedIn messages and hope that somebody will respond. And great thing is I had 2 people that responded to me. I had Zoom calls with them. I asked a lot of questions, and those things really, really helped in like doing that process. So it was a wild experience, right? But we figured it out. I think that one of the most important things of anybody who would do operations is being able to figure things out, right? So there's problems, you've never done it before, but you can research, you can ask questions and figure them out. So it's been an exciting experience. Now it's a lot less exciting because now we've grown, things are stable.
You've
There's
conquered
there's not as much chaos
odds.
as there used to be, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think this is also like a cornerstone in our organization. Is trying to figure it out because no one will figure it out for you, and also having the space to figure it out. So everything was not set in stone. So we had space to invade, do whatever we want, and just like try to make things better. So I think that was really cool.
That is so beautiful. Before we go ahead, I just want to mention that in the chat, we've got several chats. A lot of them are sending congratulatory messages and talking about being semi-finalists. But I also want to mention that we've got people from all across the world. We've got Lem from Botswana. We've got Kenneth, who congratulated you, Alba, from, I believe, Nigeria. Ismail from Nigeria. Stark from Togo. Joseph from Uganda. We have Chiamaka from Nigeria. Awesome. We have Easter from Kenya. It's the first time. I think Easter is a female. She's a first time applicant and a proud semi-finalist. That's actually happens. Like for the Atlas Core Fellowship, it's got like a 1% acceptance rate. So for you to be a semi-finalist at the first time, that's really awesome. We've got Christy from India. We've got Awa from Uganda. We've got Yusuf. And we've got Julius from Cameroon. We've got Amaka, also a first-time applicant and semi-finalist from Nigeria, I believe. We've got Lin from Vietnam. We've got Sudipa from India. And we'll go over the rest later. And so, Abba, during your remote fellowship service, you had a supervisor located half across the world. What were some of the challenges that you faced when you started the fellowship, and how were you able to overcome them?
So I think one of the main things that I like kind of try to figure out when I started my fellowship is basically what is my role, right? So as I said, we were a very small organization. It's funny to say, or the organization that I used to serve at was very small. Now that's the proper way to say things, but they started off as a very small organization, right? And there were other 2 researchers. One of them became the head of research, so it was just me, another researcher, and the head of the research. And they kind of gave me like this one task, this one major project that I need to work on. And I think the main challenge was like I didn't agree with the project. Like I thought it was stupid, and I thought we should do it in another different way. And it was just me for like a month trying to communicate like the better way to do it. So I had to do like presentations. I had to do like send them like proof of what I'm saying and write things about it and whatever. So I think that was like the earliest challenge. It's like I wanted to do the research in a different way than they initially wanted me to do, and because in our organization you have space to kind of say what you want and do things your way. This was my initial challenge, I think. Another just main challenge was I don't think it was a challenge, but it was like interesting to kind of discover like the culture of working. So like at the beginning we had a very informal kind of work environment, and I think it took me 1, 2, 3 many times to realize, oh, those guys are really informal. So yeah, Emmanuel was laughing because he knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, I think it was just like sensing the culture online is very tricky, I think. But through a lot of meetings and a lot of like coffee chats with the different with the people we had at this point, you kind of like start to build out more. And like one advice I always give to everyone is like use your personality. I mean, you're here because you're here. You're here because you're unique, not just work, but like personality as well. So like just like always be yourself, and you'll figure out the culture sooner or later, I feel.
Beautiful. Emmanuel?
So I mean, if you can you just recap the question a little bit so that I
Yeah, so you started in Nigeria. You are the supervisor in DC. What were the challenges that you faced, and how were you able to overcome them?
So yeah, interestingly, I think that everybody always thought that the time zone will be the biggest problem, right? But it wasn't in our case. It was, I mean, probably also because of some of the things that Heba mentioned, because we weren't a really bureaucratic organization, right? It was just a bunch of people, and we just worked with timelines. As long as you got work done, it was fine. I think the bigger challenge for me was understanding how things worked in the US without being able to go there and see for myself, right? So even it's in, big things and little things. Big things could be, cultural things, understanding how to talk to people and how people talk to you. So I'll give you a good example, something that I've always found very funny. So I'm from Nigeria, and where I'm from in Nigeria, we have a huge culture of respect, right?
Sure.
And also a huge culture of maybe chivalry, right? So for example, if I send you a message in the morning, I would say, "Hi, Kayode, I hope you're fine. I hope you had a good night," before I even say whatever I want to say, right? And then I'm working with people who will text you in the morning and not even say hi, and will just say, "Hey, how are we going on this?" And I'm like, wait, say good morning, but you kind of it's weird because you're not like, is this person rude? But after a while, you realize, oh, maybe they're not just rude. Maybe this is just a difference in cultures, and you need to become a bit conscious of that and not allow that affect whatever that is going on. So it's in those kind of cultural nuances. It's also in little things like we need to print business cards, and I need to figure out how to print business cards and have them delivered to people in America while I'm in Nigeria.
And you're in Lagos.
And I'm in Lagos, and so it's for me, those were the things that were a bit more challenging, is trying to figure out how things work just from your desk in Lagos, Nigeria. And I think I had a lot of fun figuring things like that. It was always like a big deal for me, like, now I've solved another problem. I will, drink some wine, clap for myself. I just have fun by myself in lockdown. But yeah, that for me was probably, the biggest challenge.
Beautiful.
Kayode, you keep asking us, what about you? What was your biggest
I was going to say the same thing just now. So I think if we're going to take a survey of the host organizations and we just restrict it to our host organizations, I would say all the host organizations in the Atlas Core Fellowship are quite nice, because my experience is also the same as yours. Like, at first I thought the time was going to be a problem, but then we pretty much worked around that, and it was just based on you working on timelines rather than working on specific times. So most of the meetings that we're going to have would happen early in the morning in DC, say at around this time, which would be at around 1 p.m. in Nigeria. So my meetings were happening in the afternoon. I had all morning to work, prepare for the meetings, and I pretty much didn't have so much problems. My supervisor was someone that was very understanding, and he was very open to working things around. So we didn't have a straight way of doing things. As long as things just worked out, we get stuff done. So I think all of those pretty much worked for me. What I think were my challenges were, first, crappy internet in Nigeria. So I had to have the main internet, which was like an unlimited broadband service that delivered 1 megabits per second or less to me, despite being called broadband. And then I had to have a backup of that broadband, and then I had to have a backup of a backup. And sometimes all three internet providers just would not work. That was really a very big problem for me. So I remember that I moderated the People Power Hour session whilst I was back in Nigeria, and my biggest fear was internet connection. Like, I had to get several internet modems to just ensure that everything worked out fine. But I mean, we're here now.
Yeah, the internet was real. Yeah, it's such a trauma that I think I blocked it in my head. Now that you're saying it, is coming up again.
You probably had forgotten that you had that problem.
I think it's true. It's so true. Like, the internet in certain parts of the world.
That is so true. And I had a funny story. So I remember that when I was still serving from Nigeria, we would be on this like Zoom calls,
talking about.
And I would literally, so where I stayed, I'm not sure, but I mean, it was just, you would have like, like chickens walk around in the environment somehow. And then on the call, this like chickens would start to like make their sounds. And everybody on the call would be like, wait, what? You have a chicken around you? And I'm like, it's not in my house, guys. Don't worry. It's on the street.
It's just somewhere around.
And it would be so funny. It would be like the
it used to be funny. It was like, oh, Emmanuel, you have a rooster in your background.
The rooster there.
So, yeah.
That's so much fun. So the next question, I would want us three, I would say you both, but then I remember that I'm also one of the panelists. I would want us three to talk about one achievement that we're proud of, that we've accomplished, or one that we're looking forward to accomplish very soon. Abba?
So I think my whole fellowship is like something I'm very, very, very proud of. I'm the only person with planning background in a mix of political scientist and economist and things like that, people like that. It was also it still is challenging to work with people from different environments, especially that environment that is speaks a completely different language than yours. And I'm not talking here about Arabic and English. I'm talking about like communication languages, right? Like they're just like they look at things differently, right? And we have to work together and do research together. So I think my whole experience, to be honest, looking back at it right now, was something I take so much pride in. The thing that I'm looking forward to is this transition. So I live in less than 2 weeks now, so I'm counting down. So I'm just looking forward to the next phase of my life. I'm very excited about it. I think one thing that COVID taught us is that you know what, things will work out as long as you're alive and can breathe. So I'm kind of like, whenever somebody tell me, hey, Heba, what's your next move? It's like, you know what, I'll figure it out. I'm alive and I can breathe. So yay.
Awesome. Emmanuel?
Great. So for me, I think that the thing that I'm most proud of, honestly, is just watching how the organization has grown and how much that I was able to contribute to that. I think that's something that I'll always be proud of, because it's something that I've never had to do. As somebody who has always genuinely loved to work with a lot of small businesses, this was like me, before you're working almost like as a consultant, but now you're in there. And now it's your job to make it happen. So all the things you usually say, do it, right? So just seeing how it has grown and just being able to contribute to that is probably something that I'm become very proud of. And honestly, I'm just looking forward to enjoying the rest of it, right? I still have a couple of months to go. And in that time as well, we'll probably still go a little bit more. And then we're now in a new phase of, now you're big. Now you need to like transform your processes from the processes of a small organization into the processes of a bigger organization, and seeing how much I can contribute to that as well would be really interesting. So yeah.
Beautiful. So I think that we share the same in terms that, one of my successes is actually what I applied to the fellowship for, and that was to get a sort of international or global experience. So I work with the Global Operations Office in Evidence Action, and one of my roles is actually to bring all the technology departments in all of our operations across the world together, which is something that I've been successful in doing, and also creating a sort of governance in our IT processes. That's something that I'm quite proud of doing. So, Emmanuel,
yes.
When you were serving back home, what were some of the differences that you've seen? So you've spoken something about culture. Did you notice any other differences?
Between 7 in Nigeria and 7 in the US, right? Obviously, I think that in person, right, you get to see people in their elements a lot more than over Zoom, right? I'll give you a good example with Heba and I, right? Heba and I eventually came to US and started to work together physically, and we became very close, right? Like the vibes that you couldn't get over Zoom, even though it was there. But because we would have conversations and we would talk about our experiences, and it turned out that we were seeing the same things and having similar experiences, and we didn't even know because we're on Zoom and we couldn't have those conversations. But in person, when we have those conversations, like, oh my God, I was not crazy the entire time, you know? So I think that's probably one difference. I think that is also one of the limitations of working virtually. And if you want to replicate that in the virtual space, then there's a lot of intentionality that needs to go into it.
Sure.
So I think just, seeing people in their elements is a big deal for me. I mean, and also just the average things like, working at home in Nigeria, obviously just you wake up, if you have to do a meeting by like 8 a.m., you wake up at like 7:50 and just like freshen up and join it, right? But like now, waking up in the morning, getting on the train, getting on the bus, going to the park, things like this that, they're just part of the entire package of being an Atlas Core fellow in the US. So I think having those experiences as well, they're significantly different from working virtually.
Abba?
Yeah, I think it's also like I think we're also like our organization is very fortunate because we came back because we're a small organization, so we can come back to the office while maintaining whatever. But like we came back to the office earlier, so we came back in June, I think, early June or somewhere time mid-June, and just being able to kind of like, I don't know, like say, hey, whoever sitting next to me, what do you think about this? Instead of like scheduling a meeting and then doing it. So things you rely like
that's consumed so much logistics.
Exactly. I was like, this is so much easier to just like, hey, what do you think about this? Like it's so it's just things that are just so much easier. Of course, there is a lot of flexibility now, I think, in the workspaces generally in the US and I think around the world. It's like we are only required to be at the office for 3 days. It was 4 days and now it's 3 days. If we're sick, we are like just like stay at home and work from home, even if you have like the smallest things. But so there is that flexibility of like spending more time at home, but also like having the option of coming to the office and doing your work with your other colleagues and stuff like that. It was I think it's really important.
Awesome. So before we begin to round up, like I did mention to our viewers, if you have questions, please just put them in the chat box. I'll see a couple of questions. But before going to the questions, just want to acknowledge that Caroline from Kenya, we see you. Anya from Cameroon, we see you. Namrata from India, see you. Kipto from Kenya, good to have you here, and it's good to have you listen to our experiences. We've got Toton from Nigeria and Tijesu from Nigeria. We've got Prince from Delhi in India. We've got Paola from Mexico. And yeah, I think that's also one exciting thing. It's exciting to see people from South America also apply for the fellowship. We've got Eric from South Africa. We've got Patricia from Uganda, wishing us the best in our fellowship. We've got Paola from Brazil. We've got Sam. Sam did not say where he's from, but he had a question. He said, one question, why does it take so long for semi-finalists to succeed as Atlas Core thoughts about increasing partner organizations? Does any of us have anything to say to that?
I don't know, because fortunately my experience has been like I was a semi-finalist and then I got matched very quickly. But I think it's about finding like the right match for you, and I think it can be difficult. So I think like the best thing that Atlas Core did is that they put me like exactly the like used my skill exactly to put me in the right organization at the right time. So I think like with matching Atlas Core, I owe Atlas Core everything because they like. The matching has been incredible. Like putting our urban researcher to do exactly urban research in this one area that I never did urban research in, which is really important to increase my skills. I think I would imagine it would be difficult. So maybe that's why it takes a lot of time. But I think Atlas Core can like answer better about this. But yeah.
Emmanuel, do you have something to say?
I mean, I guess similar to what Heba said as well. we do. I mean, obviously, Atlas Score gets a lot of applications, and there are a lot of great applications as well, right? And you want to keep as many great people within the pool, but the matching is what then becomes a bit tricky. And I honestly think that, I mean, from my experience, they try as much to communicate this as well. They let you know that the matching can take a little bit of time because they're trying to make sure that the fellowship is as impactful for the host organizations and for the fellows as well. So that's what makes it a bit tricky. But I'm really, really I wish everybody the best. I hope that you guys get matched as soon as possible so that you can have the experience that a lot of us have been privileged to have. So
yeah, thank you very much, guys. So Sam had a follow-up question, which I'm going to respond to. So he said, at least give concrete feedback as to why semi-finalist isn't yet selected, that he almost dropped his job. So I'd recommend that please don't drop your job until you actually get confirmation that you've been selected for the fellowship, right? So there's a pool of semi-finalists, and what Atlas Score tries to do is to look for host organizations that fit what your goals are. So a good example is me. I have a couple of years technical experience, so I wasn't looking for technical experience, but I had never worked in a structured environment. And I'd done a lot of international volunteering, but I had never also worked in what I'll call a multinational. And that was what Atlas Score gave to me. So two things I valued the most about my fellowship experience is that first, I'm working in a structured environment. So yesterday, my supervisor is away on leave. So I had an issue yesterday. It would have been something that I would have just sent a message to him to say, oh, Mike, can you please get this done? But then he's away. So I had to, I couldn't just do that stuff. I needed to get approval from someone higher up to him. And that person also needed to get approval from a third person, right? So I didn't see all of that approval processes in the past. But now because my supervisor is not around, it made the situation opener to me. So it's not just a straight get stuff done thing. You also may need to get approval. So I needed to go through that process. And also more importantly, I also wanted to get the international experience. And now sometimes I'm up at 3 a.m. working with some folks in India. I'm up at 7 a.m. working with folks in Kenya. And then I'm up at 4 p.m. working with folks here in DC. Those are the things that I wanted to experience. And those are the things that I'm actually experiencing. So I'm sure Atlas Score is trying to design a perfect experience for you, Sam. And that's why you're yet to be selected. So please just be a little bit patient and don't drop your job until you get a confirmation.
Quit your job, guys.
Yeah,
until you have a final offer, do not do it, please.
Yes, until you get a final offer. That's very, very important. And Emmanuel, Joseph is saying great experience. He loved what you were talking about. And then we've got Antoniette from Rwanda. We've got Winner from Ghana. That's beautiful. Her name is Winner.
She's a winner.
She's a winner, yeah. So we've got Nabete from Uganda. We've got Moses from Ghana. Moses has a question. He says, what skill sets or experience made you guys attractive to your host organizations?
I mean, for me, I would say it was obviously the fact that when I joined, it was an organization who, like I said earlier, were just researchers, and they were looking for people who had a lot more like organizational skills, right? So, like I said, I had this background in human resources. I was like a certified HR practitioner, and I had a bunch of experience as well. Also, I had this experience with like managing projects and obviously like just like managing people as well. So I think those were the things that made it a good fit, because here you have an organization that is just a bunch of researchers trying to properly structure and formalize the organization, and then you have some of these skills. So I guess that's what made it a good fit for me at the time. And then the work that I've now had to do, or the things that I've had to learn in that process, has also now proved why that was such a great match.
Emmanuel, I feel insulted every time you say a bunch of researchers. What do you mean?
Oh, sorry. Nice? A bunch of really, really, really brilliant and fun researchers. No, but researchers are fun, right? To be honest, they are nerds, I would say, but especially the researchers that I have to work with at CCI, they're a different kind of nerd. Trust me, you'd enjoy working with them.
Awesome. Abba, do you have an insight into the skill sets or experience that made you selected?
Yeah. I think they basically told me exactly why they hired me, and they keep telling me that because I ranted. So they asked me a question about this one urban planner, and I kind of gave a rant of 10 minutes about why he was not good. And that aligned with their intellectual thinking or approach towards urban planning. And then it was kind of a process from there to test my other skills, which is like my writing, my research, and those kind of things. Another thing that came to handy that like also I have well, my background is in architecture, and architects can do like graphic design and can design stuff and shit like that, which was monopolized a lot, well, till now, or till I left in the organization, because like smaller organizations, like you kind of tend to do multiple things. So I was like doing also like a lot of graphic design and having that sense in developing the aesthetic for the our organization. But yeah, it was just basically the intellectual alignment of where we were going with this, the set of skills that are concerning research, graphic, and communications. And yeah, I think that's why I'm here, or that's what they told me at least.
Awesome. So for me, I'm not able to pinpoint what exactly the skill set was, but I think that my background in IT probably played a huge role. Also, my background in IT project management, because I do a couple of project managements for the IT projects that we currently have. So that may also be something. Maybe also my IT procurement skill sets, but I really can't pinpoint what exactly it is. But I think that I did impress them well when we had a fellow and host organization interview, and
you need to ask.
I got selected.
Awesome. Because I did why
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, so we've also got Grace and Moyo from Zimbabwe. Also happy to mention that so at the dinner 2 nights ago, right, we met again with the previous training manager from Atlas Core, who is also from Zimbabwe. So I just thought to mention that. Then we've got Balogun from Nigeria, Bayode from Nigeria, we've got ADP from Kenya, we've got Mikosi from Eswatini. Eswatini, thank you. We've got Abdul from Kashmir. And oh, beautiful. So yeah, we've got several questions now. Okay, I'll jump over to the questions. How long does it take to match you guys with an organization? So I think
that's probably
times.
Like it's different for different people, and that's probably something that Atlas will probably be able to answer better. But I think it's different for different people, so I don't think it'll be fair to commit to a specific timeline.
Okay, then I'll go over to you, Abba. So someone here says, being blind, I wanted to know how much the program is inclusive for people with disability. Any insights?
I wouldn't, since I don't have any disability, I don't think I would be the best to comment on that. But I think, I don't know, I wouldn't be the best to comment on that, to be honest. I don't.
Okay. Don't mute. The next question I'll push to you, Abba. Any challenge in terms of finance?
Finance. Oh, yeah. So you're in a very, very, very strict money income. It's not basically an income. It's just like some money so you can eat and drink and go to work, right? So, I mean, if you cook at home and if you take the metro everywhere, you're going to be fine. But don't ever, like, I think this is one of the biggest problems that Atlas Core fellows fall in every single time, is the fact that people expect more, right? So like everything on the Atlas Core website is completely 100% right. You are on a very strict stipend. You probably will have on your visa a 2-year restriction that you cannot work in the you have to go back after your fellowship. Those things are gonna happen, right? Like you're gonna be on, like everything I just said, that everything on the website is gonna happen. Do not expect those things not to happen. Like don't come and like, hey, if they tell you you're gonna be poor, you're gonna be poor. Like you're not but you're not gonna have like a fancy dinner every night. No, you can do it once a month probably, but not every single night. So like they are very honest with you, And just keep in mind the thing that you read right now. Don't expect more. They're very clear, right? I have the J2 on my visa, so I have to go back for 2 years. The E2 one, I don't know, whatever it's called. So it's like these are the things that are there. You have to ask yourself, am I willing to do that? Am I willing to give up 1 year of my life being in a very, very strict finance? You will not be hungry, believe me. You will not be hungry. You will be able to travel. I traveled. I was in New York, I was in Chicago, I was in Philly. I've been able to do that, but it's not like you can go out every night and just like have fun and these kind of stuff. You can have fun at home, you can drink at home, eat at home. That's fine. You can also walk in, like, park is free, but like don't expect to have a fancy dinner every day. Like, what's the, like, you have to, you, this is really like my only thing, my only advice is like, really think, will that work for me? Am I willing to do that? Yes or no? Like, don't come here and then complain about things that they told you that are gonna happen. They already told you guys. They told you so many times. So like, yeah.
Yeah, and Israel has a follow-up question. He says, what value addition do you have to get interesting jobs back home? So, I mean, I think that would a lot of times depend on you. I think that the Atlas Core Fellowship, one of the values that it has is that it's very respected across the world. So when we started our fellowship, I did remember that I did have a coffee chat with an alumni, and she told me, she's from Tunisia. She told me about our experience. So in one of the networking events that Atlas Core did organize, she met someone there who actually got a job back home. So as she was home, she started a job. And then she did mention to me that she got a scholarship opportunity. And then she did reach out to Scott, the CEO, the previous CEO of Atlas Core. And then Scott wrote a recommendation letter for her. And then she got that scholarship to do her master's in the UK. She was yet to be done with her master's in the UK. She got another job back in Tunisia, and she just returned back home. So it was back-to-back success for her. But I think it depends on the fellow. It may not be the same. I think I can also talk about some of us in our class who had finished their fellowships and had gotten exciting jobs right outside of the fellowship. Like, they finished the fellowship and they got awesome jobs. So I think it depends on the fellow. It depends on the experience that you've got. It also depends on the networks that you're able to build. Yusta also had a question.
Sorry, let me just also say something about that. I mean, just about some of the things that you and Heba have spoken about, is because I think that, you know, sometimes people can see the fellowship as a financial opportunity, right? I think that more than finance, it's an opportunity to, you know, get some, you know, I won't say global exposure, because some of the organizations you might have the privilege of working with are global organizations. And it's an opportunity to learn, right? At the end of the day, it's a fellowship. It's a learning opportunity, right? So I think the learning is much more, you know, important than, you know, like the finance or the fun or whatever else, right? So I think having that balanced mindset, that hey, this is first a learning opportunity, more than anything else, helps as well. And having that will also help in doing something that Kayode just said, right? So if you take advantage of all of the learning and all of the networking, it can be, you know, a lot more impactful for your long-term career than if you're just thinking of it as an opportunity to make money, because that's not what it is.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Yusta has a question, which I'm just going to respond to. She says, what happens if one is not placed in an organization because apparently the organization does not match their profile? So what would happen is that you're not placed, and then you'd have to wait till you get placed. And then we've got Stark, who has a question. It says, as a semi-finalist, how can we make our application stand out? I am applying for communications and marketing field. Do you have any advice for me? Does anyone have an advice on making your application stand out?
I mean, I think once you're a semi-finalist, you've probably, you know, you skip the hurdle of application, right? Your application has been accepted. You've been placed as a semi-finalist. The matching is what happens next. And I think typically what happens is, I mean, in my experience, once they find a good match for you, they introduce you to your organization, and then you have to have a chat with that organization's representative as well. And I think that's where you can, you know, you can do something as a semi-finalist. And it's simply the same thing you would do if you're preparing for a job interview, right? You want to learn about the organization. You want to learn about what they do. You want to learn about how you might be a good fit for what that organization does. Because I think that when Atlas Core does the match, the point of that call with the host organization is also to see if that matching process that Atlas Core has designed works. So they will ask you a lot of questions. You have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions as well to see if that match is for real. So I think that that's the thing you can do, is simply how you prepare for a job interview, right? Is learn about the organization and sort of imagine how you fit in as well, and just make that visible on that call. And I think that would help a lot.
Awesome, Emmanuel. Awesome. Paula has a question about how long it takes to match you, but I think we've answered that. So I'll move on to Joseph. Joseph says, how do you avoid redundancy after completing your fellowship and finding a job back home? Does anyone have any tips on that?
I can have a tip in like a month or two. So
I was going to say that none of us has experienced that yet, right?
Fingers crossed, right? But yeah, you can only imagine that. Like, the job search is different in different parts of the world. But here's what I think, right? Once you do this fellowship, you are, I mean, as much as you're still a citizen of wherever you're from, but you've also been put on the global map, right? So you have the opportunity, whether it's employment or whether it's even projects that you're working on, all of a sudden you have a global network to work with, in my opinion, right? So there's some projects that I'm working on, and I already know that I know people from all over the world that can all of a sudden contribute to this project. So if I needed assistance on a project, or if I needed resource persons to come and speak at the conference I'm organizing, I can simply tap into that Atlas Core network, right? Put something on an Atlas Core group or send an email to all the Atlas Core fellows and alumni and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Who can help out? And I promise you, you would immediately get a lot of responses, right? And I assume it might also work for, a job search or whatever. But I think that's one of the best things about Atlas Core, is that there is such a rich network that comes with it. And you have to recognize that and be willing to tap into that network, right? Because people send me emails as well, right? Past Atlas Core fellows, they will just send an email to everybody and say, this is what I'm doing. If you can, contribute in this way or this way, and you reach out and you help out. So I think that you have that network at your disposal, and that would be really, really useful for you post fellowship.
Yeah, Emmanuel, I'll still stay on you for this next one. It says, is part of the blended fellowship in your own country also paid for, like the one in the US?
If I understand that question, yes, you're paid when you are in your host country. You're also paid when you are in the US, right? They provide a stipend for you because, I mean, while you're in your country, for some people, for example, you may have quit your job, like you said. You also obviously have to be able to live your life, right? So what Atlas Core does is they have a good network around the world, and they help you to sort of estimate, and they ask you as well, sort of to estimate what your expenses are, rent and all of those other things, internet, some of those other things that are important, and they pay you a stipend, that you also obviously have to agree that that amount is good enough for you, right? So they pay you an agreed stipend between both you and Atlas Core that we believe is, good enough for you to, sustain your life while you're in your host country. And then when you come to the US, I think the stipends are pretty standard, and you also continue giving that stipend as well.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Heba, I'll jump over to you. And this question says that, is there a structured orientation program before the fellows are placed in host organizations?
So there is, if I got the question right, there is an onboarding process that from Atlas Core, like remember, like our onboarding, we had like a week of sessions, what to expect in an American organization, other like skill building and capacity building sessions before we joined. So there is an onboarding process. Again, we're the first blended fellow, so maybe the process now is different because this wasn't like May of 2020, but like we had like a week of onboarding with Atlas Core, I remember, for our class. And then in the organization, you do get another level of onboarding and it depends from one organization to another. So for instance, our onboarding with a lot of, since I'm a researcher, it was a lot of readings and a lot of talking about the readings. Amazing time. For other more technical, I would say, fellows, it would be something different, but we all go through some sort of onboarding, I would say, yes.
Yeah, and I think that immersion is also planned to welcome the new fellows. So like after the new fellows start, we usually will jump into immersion. So I think the next immersion is going to be later in October, and the new fellows are going to come in early in October. All right, so this question says, does scouting for a host organization make you more potent in being a finalist? I think like make you more qualified to be a finalist, or doesn't it matter whether you do or not? So I'm going to tell you that Atlas Core does not allow you to reach out to host organizations. So please don't scout for host organizations. There's a team in Atlas Core that does that. And what they would usually do would be to look at who you are, look for a host organization that fits what your goals are and match you with them. So please don't scout for host organizations. And then Philip says, Philip from Ethiopia, good to hear about the type of host organizations. So I think he is asking for the type of host organizations that we've got. A lot of the host organizations are actually non-profits. They are not all non-profits, but the bulk of them are non-profits. And I think they do several different things. So my host organization, for instance, is an health-based non-profit, and we provide free deworming tablets for kids in poor countries across the world, and also provide clean drinking water for people across the world. And that's what we do. Emmanuel and Heba's are also a non-profit, but they would design sustainable cities. I hope I'm correct.
We work with governance systems more. Yes.
Awesome. So those are the kind of host organizations.
But there is a huge range of host organizations, right? So I always say that like the smallest or like on the very kind of far, I don't know, position, there is CCI, a very small kind of upcoming NGO that is very kind of informal and has a certain culture. On the other side, you would have things like the Red Cross, right? So Anil is and other fellows that are serving at the Red Cross, are very well established, very structured organization. There is a huge kind of range of organizations that we get placed at, and it depends on your skill set and what will benefit you the most, I would say. So that's why the matching is a bit of an insane kind of process, I would say.
All right, I'll stay with you, Abba, for the next question. So Lorna says, how much extra money would you recommend the fellows bring with them? I know Atlas Core recommends at least $1,000, but it's nice to hear from the actual fellows as well. So how much money?
So how much money? So when I came here, I think I brought 500 or 400 dollars. Okay. But like some people, like it depends on who you are as a person, right? Like I don't do shopping, I don't do stuff, so I don't need money generally at the role in life. But for other fellows, I know that they will keep transferring money to their bank account, because if you want, the luxurious part of life, you're not going to get it on our stipend. So I know that some fellows transfer money with them to their bank account. But I know that's like also it depends on the country, because some countries have more problems with wire transfers or bank transfers. So you need to understand what are your country limitations. If something happened, can somebody send you money? Is that possible? What are those ways? So you have to have a list of those kind of things. But I would say like 500 or 400 is more than enough, at least for me. But you have to know who you are and how much money do you need for this extra things, right? And bring it with you, I would say.
Yeah, I came in with $700, but I think that I pretty much just stashed it somewhere because I really did not need it. Then Emmanuel, there's a question actually directed to you from Lame, and it says that you spoke about. Now I lost that question. Okay, I'm just going to rephrase the question the way I understood it. So he says that you spoke about designing business cards. So he was asking that, are you a graphics designer, and did that sort of influence you being chosen?
Okay. No. So I mean, I was just using that, I gave that as an example of some of the challenges that we had to sort of like, deal with working virtually, right? So in the print business cards example, what I had to do was simply find like an online service that can design and print business cards, right? and we sort of made that work, right? So in that instance, I mean, what's most important, really, regardless of what the challenge is being able to think on your feet and figure out how to solve problems. So I'm not a graphics designer. I couldn't design business cards. I think at the time we had partner, we had contracted designing to some person who designed the business cards, and I just had to find like a service that could print it online and deliver it to wherever I wanted it to be delivered to. So that was essentially how I dealt with that. But no, I'm not a graphics designer. Heba probably does a lot more design, and she's really amazing at it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I think that we need to start rounding up. So I think we're just going to answer one or two more questions, and then we'll round up. So there is a question.
2 minutes, so I just say.
Okay, so I think it's just best that we round up then. So what we're going to do is I'm going to reach out with the folks in Atlas Core and possibly have these questions copied and maybe post any frequently asked questions so that they can actually be answered. And with this, I'd love to thank you both, Heba and Emmanuel. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. It's been wonderful reliving the fun times that we've had together with you, Heba, also with you, Emmanuel. Thank you very much. And I would also want to mention to the participants in the chat to please feel free to join Atlas Core on the 29th of September by 10 a.m. Eastern Time to hear a lot more about the blended fellowship. So I'm sure that a couple of the questions that we're unable to answer here will possibly be answered in that session. And if they're not answered, you can also just ask them as you've done here today. If you have any questions concerning the application process, please feel free to shoot an email to apply@atlascore.org. You can have the question line. Questions from class 39 webinar participants, so it's going to get a lot more attention, and maybe they can also just rope us into the response to that. Yeah, and I think that also the organizers would put some of our emails in there. So like, I'm happy to have my emails there, and I'm also happy to maybe respond to you via LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is that we're able to connect with. So with this, I want to say thank you so much to the team at Atlas Core. I know a couple of people that worked behind the cameras to make this happen. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Anna. Thank you to the communications team. Thank you to the programs team. And most importantly, thank you to all the awesome folks at Atlas Core Fellowship. With this, we'll bring this chat to an end. And once again, to our participants from across the world, thank you very much for joining us. And have a good one.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Goodbye.